Hi, my name is Amy Arundale, and my dissertation is called Keeping Athletes on the Field. I grew up as a soccer player and then working as a physio in a large youth soccer club. I found myself developing a lot of clinical questions around primary and secondary ACL injuries. And this led me to pursue a PhD at the University of Delaware. The dissertation has three component studies. The first explores primary prevention. So we followed two collegiate women's soccer teams as they performed the 11-plus injury prevention program over 2 soccer seasons, and one control team over 1 season. And we recorded injuries as well as 3D motion analysis during preseason and postseason, using a drop-jump task. I also calculated the minimal detectable change as well as minimal clinically important difference for biomechanics to try and put change within a clinical context. My results indicated that the 11 plus may have led to a reduction of lower extremity injuries during both the first and second season, but it may not have changed biomechanics, particularly biomechanical risk factors associated with knee and ACL injuries. Also, during the second season, there may have actually been an increased risk for knee injuries, as we observed 3 ACL injuries in our intervention group. So the results of this study seem to indicate that the 11 plus may be effective in this population at reducing lower extremity injury risk, but there may be changes that are needed to the program in order to help it be effective over multiple seasons, as well as change biomechanics that are associated with knee and ACL injuries. My second component study looked at return to sport after ACL reconstruction. We know that athletes after ACL reconstruction are at a high risk for a new knee injury and a new ACL injury, but I was interested in their risk outside the knee joint. So to look at this, we used Major League Soccer. We identified the athletes who had had ACL reconstructions and compared them to age-matched controls. What I found was that our athletes after ACL reconstruction had significantly shorter careers. And while they were playing, they started significantly fewer and were unused in significantly more games than their age-matched controls. Athletes after ACL reconstruction didn't have a higher risk for other lower extremity injuries, and they may have actually been at a lower risk for hamstring and quadriceps injuries. So this study seems to indicate that even once an athlete has returned to sport, they may need help from performance and sports medicine teams to make sure that they're truly returning to their previous level of play or their pre-injury level of sport. My third aim involved secondary prevention. It's actually a secondary analysis of a larger randomized control trial called the ACL Sports Trial. So I compared outcomes in terms of function and patient report in men and women who had undergone the ACL Sports Trial. So the program that's part of the ACL Sports Trial is a secondary prevention program performed during the return to sport phase of ACL reconstruction rehabilitation. I also looked at the outcomes 2 years after ACL reconstruction in the men in terms of second ACL injury incidence and return to pre-injury level of sport. What I found was that there was no difference between men and women after the training program in terms of functional or patient-reported outcomes. Both men and women had improvements in both those outcomes, with one exception. Quadriceps strength limb symmetry was similar between men and women at the beginning of the training program. However, men improved in quad strength limb symmetry where women did not. So these seem to indicate that although we get really excited clinically about this return to sport phase, and particularly in women, we really can't forget strengthening in this phase, as quad strength limb symmetry is really important in second ACL injury risk. When we look at the second ACL injury incidence, we've only looked at the men because not all of the women have reached the 2-year time point yet. But there's only been 1 second ACL injury in the men in this 2-year time frame. And 95% of those men have returned to their pre-injury level of activity, all level 1 and 2 cutting and pivoting sports. So these results indicate that at least in the men, the ACL sports training program could be beneficial in helping them safely return back to sport. And with that, that's the end of my dissertation in 5 minutes. Thanks so much for watching my video and putting up with my first attempt at video editing. This is also my realization that I will never make it as a TV anchor, but I I think that's okay. Thanks to everybody who supported me in this whole process, and thank you so much, BJSM.